Violence on airplanes is at an all-time high. As of Tuesday, the FAA says there have been more than 5,600 reports of unruly passengers this year alone. The agency usually investigates fewer than 200 incidents a year. Look at that sharp increase on your screen. Yesterday at a Senate oversight hearing, which had a significant focus on the $54 billion in pandemic payroll support for the airline industry, Sara Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, testified about that increase in violence and its impact.
We are not a bailout, but lately we have been punching bags. Flight attendants and aviation workers are saying, please make it stop.
Sara Nelson joining us now. Sara, good to see you again this morning. You know, so much of that violence, as you know all too well, is related to masks, which made it, I thought, even more interesting that yesterday, two of the CEOs who were there testifying questioned the continuing need for masks on planes. I want to play that moment for folks at home. We may not have that sound, but the CEO of Southwest, Gary Kelly, saying, I think the case is very strong that masks don't add much, if anything, in the air cabin environment, saying it's very safe and very high quality compared to any other indoor setting. The former Surgeon General was on CNN this morning and called those comments, quote, irresponsible and reckless. Where do you stand?
I said in the hearing, those comments were not helpful at all. And I do want to correct the record here because Gary Kelly came over to me after the hearing and said he was absolutely with me on the fact that our layered approach to safety and security is what's necessary to keep people safe on the plane. So the filtration that's on the plane, the HEPA filtration, air filtration with the mask, with the deep cleaning, is all of those things together keep people safe on a plane and in a controlled environment. And Doug Parker did not hear what was happening. He has put a statement out on the record saying that he was responding to the HEPA filtration. He was not responding to the masks. So the biggest problem for flight attendants is that when there is inconsistency in communication, that puts us in harm's way because we are charged with enforcing that mask mandate. So those two CEOs corrected the record with me, Doug Parker on the record for the whole public. I want to be very clear that the airline industry from the very beginning has worked with us to put mask policies in place even before the federal government put that in place, and they continue to support that and support the flight attendants.
So you make a good point, though, about messaging, which has been an issue from day one of this pandemic on nearly every level, whatever we're talking about, whether it be masking or even just the reality that this is an evolving science. That's the way science works. So looking at that, right, and just the need for clarification this morning, based on comments from yesterday, as you point out, that makes your job harder. I was really struck by something in your testimony when you noted that flight attendants wonder every morning when they put on their uniform whether it will be a sign of leadership and authority or a target for a violent attack. This may sound like a flippant question. It's not. What is wrong with people? What is your assessment in terms of what has changed in the way that flight attendants and aviation employees are being treated when they are simply asking people to follow a federal rule?
The biggest problem that we have in this country is that people don't know what to believe. And there have been two different narratives about this pandemic from the very beginning, and that continues. And when you keep people in that state of not knowing what to believe, their anxiety goes through the roof. We see this as flight attendants. I can relate it in a very simple analogy, which is when there's a delayed flight and we give regular updates to people, even when that flight is severely delayed, they leave smiling and thanking you. When you don't, they become agitated, angry, and sometimes there's outbursts. So you have to be clear with people about what the truth is, and then they make good decisions and they calm down.
In terms of calming down and making good decisions, I know you also made the point that you think alcohol really has a role to play here, and you would like to see better regulation of alcohol consumption on board and even in the gate area. Would you like to see a stop to alcohol sales in the airport? Would that help?
Well, look, we have a big problem here because we have low-hanging fruit that we should be able to get to. Airports are pushing to-go alcohol. So before we even get to talking about whether or not we should stop serving alcohol in the airport, and alcohol is a major contributor here, let's just stop pushing alcohol on people right up to the moment that they board that plane and giving them the idea that they can actually carry that alcohol onto the plane, which is a violation of federal regulations. People can be denied boarding, but we are at low staffing. We're not able to see those things every time. And when people have that alcohol and then they go up in the air and the cabin is pressurized at 8,000 feet and they have less oxygen coming in, that affects them more and they make bad decisions. And it is a major contributor that is getting our people hurt, and it needs to stop.
What's your biggest concern going into the holidays? You mentioned staffing. I know staffing is a major concern. There was a lot of upset passengers, right, when flights were delayed even earlier in the fall. What are you most worried about now?
Well, look, there's actually more flight attendants per flight hour now than pre-pandemic. What I'm talking about is that the airlines pre-pandemic put staffing levels down to minimum levels, and that hasn't changed. While we have airplanes full of people who are essentially first-time flyers or infrequent flyers, a lot of questions, don't really understand. That makes our jobs a lot harder. We believe that the holidays are going to be okay for the consumer, for the traveler, because we negotiated with the airlines incentives for people to come to work. Flight attendants have been a little reticent to pick up that overtime, voluntary overtime, because of the conditions at work and the concerns around COVID. But that extra incentive of financial incentive is helping them say to their families, no, I'm going to do this because this is going to be good for us. And that's going to support the operation. I think we'll be okay, barring any major weather event.
Sara Nelson, appreciate you joining us this morning. I hope people are a little kinder.
Thank you so much.